Ni Bula mina ke weekend kedi. Reiba katao le alataka me adhobi burubura endone iwalu liu kao kati burubura rarama. Na ribu ni iwalu ni burubura rarama ko me matai waru lele me nakakanangangi kabulteki me nastoa na ikarua na mamangi taki ni volteki ke na sauli busibia na wewa isi bensin. Na ikatolu waru lele na windrondo me na pep. Mengaitara monandua wate ni we matini tu me thoko mata pakai asias. Kana wati mai nei lawa waka noti ke na sen. Kana baka ngataki nei lawa waka liwa si digital currency. E wala na wini ni buli baka lawa ko Milton Friedman. Only a crisis, actual opposite, produces real change. When that crisis occurs, the actions that are taken depend on the ideas that are lying around. E waka matalata ko Professor Friedman ni nabibisaw ni baka bulewan ni dona matinitu e bua mai ni tando mai nangaw na raraw. Ni sauti na biba kadadani sangi binakati mewali na liang. Sangi tomikida ke sona wakatutu kasa bola imo kadada utitu. Nariwuriw ni bakaluto na sakuro koro wakador na matibali madaw ni Cyril Kimirika enalong ni wanoko Iran sa tarro bonawang kalilib kauswayway meratako sorawa may nandabya tangingo na sa Strait of Hormuz. Nawangaliw kauswayway ti kumay natombaliw ni Persia kadiriawayani enadhiaba ki Iran. Meadho pamendikwa sesian ni Lorendo na ibakandinendine ni aranyi raw e bulitu enalong ni wanwa ki Iran. Me wantono na nona ibakamadhala na matinto ni Cyril kina sa wawirita kina non raliluliw ng Iran ko Ayatollah Ali Hosseini Khomeini. Kasadikeva matuwa tiko ngao non representanti ki Amerika ko Donald Trump. Me sorrow todo ko nabilita ki ko Iran matinto ni Iran. Yongo ni sa toroda kinaua sa toroda kina na kolkol. Sabaka kina na kina tiki wabaka takilema na nonro na kina kilawaki. Na matinito ni Amerika kina nonro to na Israel. Na baka dadali wabaka dorti ko Amerika ki be Iran e abu tiko mena nonro kodob na matinito ni Amerika. Na sautu ya rawati tiko mena volte kini wewe nroka mena bono Iran. E bola na daw bola tukutuku na United Daily News. Trump wants to attack Iran not only to safeguard Israel's security and eliminate the nuclear threat, but also because gaining control of Iranian crude oil is an additional benefit. He is adopting the Venezuelan model, where American oil companies invest and lead the way, and the US buys the crude oil produced. This will make the US a super crude oil exporter. Namatinto Iran e rawat tiko baka bilyon ng dola, e na volte kiwewain rock e na ilawo baka liwiliwa ng cryptocurrency. Kabaka po na mesa ng Amerika may ato baka lawaki, ang bilyon ng dola ni Weibo Liongo. E namba kironon dolaro sang bulkalima kinamba kironon dolaro sang bulkaono. E ang bulyo Amerika irona lawbo kasuli na biwakan tunni metaro bikabeso na baka ilabo baka liwaliba na cryptocurrency. Kaya baka iloray may kendo na sungsungop kanto mambula sinto na matinito baka taki Iran. Na Bank Secrecy Act 1970 e taro ng business ni baka ilabo kinambang kita lang ay Amerika mira ngunisala ni bakoy labo bakalawa kita siya ng basulaw. Nalawa tal nga ongo e ongo nga nambangi kina business ni bakoy labo may maro ni tukutuk may balat na nonra customer bakawi tukutuk. Siya na currency transaction reports kina suspicious activity report kina financial crimes enforcement network si FinCEN. Ongo na tambata kini Treasury Department. Na Bank Secrecy Act ko yung katiratal nga ng business ni bakoy labo makanambange may radide bakatal nga iso na anti-money laundering program siya na AML compliance program. Na inaki ni AML ianram na bakoy labo na tinaundol ng dola kalakodaki. Na itukutuk kamaro na FinCEN bak ngataki may dokumbata endo na kis ni Wanyindike tambatakataka ni Internal Revenue Services Criminal Investigation si IRS Criminal Investigation. Siyerto na tambatakataka na Federal Bureau of Investigation sa FBI. Kagabaka nga teki metaroba at talanronro ni labo kinabi account ni bangi edidibaka tiko na business bakalawak. Na kinabi suka tori bakuko ni labo siyaw may na bakuy labo bakalawaki sa illicit transaction. Ongo yaw katikina na 18 US Code 981 Civil Forfeiture kena Anti-Money Laundering Act 2020. Na baka bulewa ni Amerika ka baka toka na Fourth Amendment sulia na ngalala bira na leo ni Vanua mira tango maki non tukutuku siya personal information. Yana Bank Secrecy Act 1970 bumay na sa baka tulewa na Supreme Court indona tukutuku mbalat na tamatayan dua siya personal information wasiki nandona third party baka nambangi siya social media sa tiko nandon kinabitamba taka baka matintu mira access taka baka ngataka na tukutuku mbalatiko na buko ni bandin dika ni basulaw sa criminal investigation. Na Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for US Stablecoins Act siya na Genius Act 2025 mbuli melaw na katin kawalu ni bulo chulay ronondolo rosang wulkalim. Kasulia na lewa kina US Treasury Department kina OCC si Office of the Comptroller of the Currency may ungeti ira na mbuli na stablecoin baka na teva may besuka kataro na bakuilaw wakaliwliwa siya na crypto fund transfer. Weekenda na ito kanini sarasari tiko maya volay tukutuku the diplomat. The Genius Act was signed into law by US President Donald Trump on July 17 to regulate stablecoins and their related technologies. At the bottom of the controversy and competition that surrounds the new law are China's advances in blockchain, the technology that makes cryptocurrency possible, and why these developments need to be met with a bold response by the United States. Metole subatale na inaki ni bakadadani Iran na matinto ni Amerika. To may wili kamanda indone ulnit kutukongo, Iran approves use of cryptocurrency for imports to bust sanctions. Gosia pole may na ronondol rosang wulkarwa. Ena nona sanga na matinto Iran, may kalawata na bito tungitaki sa sanctions may na matinto ni Amerika kinanui financial institutions taleso. Dotalingo, Iran's regime tops $3 billion as illicit transactions surged in 2025 report. Kaya rabak ng takatalangan na bibolya na soli baklolo manayaw siya na bata trading system kina matinito China. To may wili kataliro na volituto kumewandita ka na Kocokoco may na matinito ni Amerika. Ina kina wakalutumi nga sa ukuro na wano Iran. Go may nandaw volituto na folklog. Tether, the issuer of USDT, has collaborated with law enforcement agencies to freeze assets linked to illegal activities amounting to approximately $4.2 billion. According to the analytics from Elliptic, by the end of 2025, stablecoin issuers, primarily Tether and Circle, had blacklisted approximately 5,700 wallets holding around $2.5 billion. About 3/4 of these addresses contained USDT at the time of freezing. In February, the coin issuer assisted in the seizure of digital assets worth $544 million at the request of US authorities. Tumeri talaga non rinaki-naki na matinto ni Shirley. Siya non reibotu, mempaleta na bakadadani, ena waloto nga sokoro, ena lomni bono ko Iran. Volay bakaungwa na volay tukutuku na Middle East ay ulutanga Israel's war of regional supremacy will not end with Iran. Kavolay bakaungwa, Israel is settling about dismantling the cities of Iran in the same way that it has leveled Gaza, parts of southern Lebanon and Beirut. As a consequence, the casualties of pinpoint bombing have soared to more than 750 deaths in Iran in just 4 days. What Netanyahu has in mind is the destruction of Iran as a regional power. Enamba ki ronondol rosang wulkarua as a sainta kako Israeli ki irito na matinitu thokobata ni European Union ki na matinitu ni Chipita and don na iwola ni Biyalayalati. Ongo me woli na liquefied natural gas may na wano Israeli kami waka welu ki na wano Chipita. Evolay and Al Jazeera, what a special moment. European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen said in a joint news conference alongside the Egyptian and Israeli energy ministers, "I very warmly welcome the signing of this historic agreement." Von der Leyen said on Twitter that the agreement would contribute to Europe's energy security. Last year, the EU imported roughly 40% of its gas from Russia. Countries have been struggling to reduce that dependency in order to sanction Russia over its ongoing invasion of Ukraine. Israeli gas will be brought via a pipeline to Egypt's LNG terminal on the Mediterranean, where some will be liquefied and transported on tankers to European shores.
kama wakabutukana na ivola ni wea lela ti ongo ena yambaki ngango kavola ena ivola itu na step 2 kaongo. In December, Israel and Egypt formally announced a long-awaited $35 billion natural gas deal that will see Jerusalem export over 130 billion cubic meters of natural gas from its Leviathan field to Cairo via pipeline until 2040. Potential new supply for European demand constitutes part of the US interest in the success of the gas deal. Increased Egyptian re-exports would reduce lingering European dependence on Russian LNG, easing the continent's efforts to fully phase out Russian LNG by the end of this year. The deal's most significant benefit to the parties as well as the regional economy is probably its most modest, a step toward regional integration for Israel in the form of a long-term shared economic interest. Expanding economic interdependence is seen by all parties and regional observers as an incentive for future stability in trade and diplomatic relation, a broad net positive for the regional economy. Ena kena may waka malmalum takingo ko Iran, ena siangin to na matintu ena sibiti Israeli, ena mbula wakailabo, siya kuko waka matibalu ena yasasa ena tokalaw eloma. Wakakina na iwalu liab ni bura-bura raramba sa siyang niyang mena tarong itali kaya kaya na yadong bek sa siyang. Na tarong mekenta tarong esa kilay ni sa torbole kamay, iya ena nguna dabali. Ongo ibido na ulin tutuk me wanditaka ni sa barro kadambote ngo na World War III. Europe is preparing for possible war with Russia. Without the US, Poland is planning to train every adult male for war. Norway is restoring all military bunkers, and Germany has unlocked billions for historic boost to defense spending. As fears grow about the reliability of the United States as an ally, countries across the European Union are scrambling to prepare for possible war with Russia. Danish and German intelligence have warned that NATO should brace for a potential attack in as little as 5 years. Kaya volatile nga naburin tuko na politiko, a militarized Russia poses a persistent threat to European security for the foreseeable future, says the document, which was first reported by Bloomberg. One of its main objectives is to fill EU capability gaps in 9 areas: air and missile defense, enablers, military mobility, artillery systems, AI and cyber, missile and ammunition, drones and anti-drones, ground combat and maritime. Total na boli tukutuku menasa sa Asia, wala tikongo na The Guardian. Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi suggested in her first parliamentary address since taking office in October that Japan could become militarily involved in a conflict between China and Taiwan. A 2015 law passed when Takaichi's mentor Shinzo Abe was Prime Minister permits Japan to exercise collective self-defense in certain situations, even if it is not directly under attack. She said an attack on Taiwan by China could trigger the deployment of a country's self-defense forces if the conflict posed an existential threat to Japan, which has territory as close as 110 kilometers from Taiwan's mainland. Sa may ngula tabi pagkatotol na bimbutambut o Gaza, kasama lelesar na biburi ni volay tukutuku kinaibalu may Iran. Sangay may lore na nonraw na kinakyo Israel ki Amerika, na kinatuba ki wakamatua na taradaki taki na bimbuda ni Gaza Strip. Tamay rida wata ni tukutuku volay ongo na Al Jazeera. Imperial Agenda, what's Trump's Gaza development plan unveiled in Davos? What's in the Gaza's plan? Trump's development plan includes projections to raise Gaza's GDP to 10 billion by 2035. Jared Kushner told attendees at Davos that construction of new developments in all these areas will take 2 to 3 years. However, he did not provide details about where Palestinians would live during reconstruction and how new properties would be allocated. Israel backed several armed groups and gangs in Gaza during the war, and Kushner said that these would either be dismantled or integrated into the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza, a body of 15 Palestinian technocrats tasked with the day-to-day running of the territory. All of Hamas's heavy weapons are to be decommissioned immediately, and the remaining small arms would be decommissioned gradually by a new Palestinian police force under the plan. The site is envisioned as a military operating base for a future international stabilization force.
planned as a multinational military composed of pledged troops. The ISF is part of the newly created Board of Peace, which is meant to govern Gaza. The Board of Peace is chaired by Donald Trump and led in part by his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. And the bolo ko Naomi Klein, Evola in Anoni Bola, in moments of crisis, people are willing to hand over a great deal of power to anyone who claims to have a magic cure, whether the crisis is a financial meltdown or, as the Bush administration would later show, a terrorist attack. Evola tikongo Miss Klein, e nangon nirarao ke na iluma, e ratala I raurao na leobunga ke na wakatulewa bobo, mai na matinitu ke ira na nonra wakasala. Io Italia na matanggali lenga wakadhabu, ke lenga wakailawu si ndona vivakasanga mai na ndona songosongo vivakariri. E sa wakasala te kenda na voltambu e na mateni Timothy wa si ono tikene timi, ni savu ni ka kevenga na kodho. E na nonra kodho eso e rasa wakadhalai e na wakambuta. A rasa wakaira nga wakaira e na iluma wakabunga. Miutinia, na lenga lewu wakaivalu si na World War III na kotame na lenga wakakane, waiwai ni indini ke na toso dhake ni isau ni Bula. E na loma ni wele dhake na matini tukira na nonre wakasala e rana wakarita kama e so ni wali. Me sotawa na wilenga e lore me na malumu kede ni wi matini tu. Nitak ni utalitak na salsar mai, kay nama kami na tomani ni na itala no ongo. Pinak.